What percentage of the overall allowances do the electric utilities get, of the national allowances under the bill?
Well, there's roughly in the range of 35% will be given to the
35%
utility
of the total
industry.
allocation.
We are responsible for 40% of the carbon emissions in the country, and so there was a haircut given to the utility industry, so we will only
So
get
it's that extra
35%
5% is where you've got to then get into, initially, get into the market, get into a market and buy permits.
Well, that's true, and basically is there's a cap that continues to decline here,
right.
so that
So the amount of
additional
trading you got to
allowances
do is
you
going to
have to
go
get,
up over
that's right.
time. So the costs that will actually be borne by the industry and by the consumers is what I'm confused about the numbers, because there's a report out from the Congressional Budget Office, I think that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, it said that it costs to the average household over 10 years to be $175, $174. And Marty Feldstein, a Republican economist to be sure, but head of the National Economic Bureau, and highly respected, has come out with this op-ed piece saying it's going to be much higher than that. How do we know? What should consumers believe?
Well, consumers should believe that the cost will be $175 or less. The consensus of folks who have studied this bill, which Marty has not done, is that the costs are very low, on the order of $100 or so a year per household. So what Waxman and Markey have done is really reached for the middle, come up with a formula on allocation that won't mean there are zero costs, but that does mean the costs are minimal and affordable for Americans. And the consensus of the economists that have modeled this bill with trading, with the allowances being allocated, has the costs being very affordable, literally pennies a day per person. Well, there is a requirement in the bill that the money has to go back to consumers, but the regulations have yet to be written.
Is this essentially a good bill for the future of the electric utility industry?
Well, I think that what we really need to, where Fred and I disagree, is on some of the nearer term targets, because what we believe, David, is that our job is to get the job done, and to do that we need
Which job is that?
to lower the carbon emissions. We've agreed on a goal of lowering carbon emissions by 80% by the year 2050. Think about that. We've got that's a major reduction.
80% over what year?
80% from 2005, and that is from 2005 levels, and that at the same time we're going to have to be building additional power plants to meet increasing electricity needs. In fact, a lot of the beneficial technologies that will help carbon reductions will use more electricity, like plug-in hybrid electric vehicles or smart grid technologies and things of that nature. So that our job is a big job, and what we need to do is to figure out how to make use of all the technologies out there to get this job done. Energy efficiency, which is we're working together to make sure we can maximize energy efficiency. Renewable technologies, new nuclear plants that are zero carbon energy. We have to develop carbon capture and storage for coal plants to take the carbon out of coal. Switching to natural gas. So the nearer term targets, are very difficult for us to meet, to be able to bring all those technologies in time. For example, nuclear and coal plants, carbon capture and storage will take 10 or 15 years to.
But as I understand your strategy, it is, let's ease into this in such a way that by the time we have to pay our very high costs, new technology may come online. We may get carbon capture and sequestration. We may have other ways that are going to reduce the ultimate cost of this.
We have the technologies out there,
right,
and new technologies will inevitably come in place. But the idea of deploying all these new technologies into the marketplace takes time to make it happen.
Right. Well, see, here's one of the things I'm curious about, and Fred, is that it seems to me you supported a bill that this is not the bill you would ideally have written. You would have brought down the carbon emissions much more rapidly if you could write the perfect bill. But facing the political realities, you wanted to get something started, get some goals, and get moving. even though this may not bring it down as rapidly as you would like. So the question becomes, are you, in some of the literature coming out of the Environmental Defense Fund, it suggests that you may want to ratchet this thing up over time. The Clean Air Act started with just 5 paragraphs, but it then, it changed over time. The standards went up, things got tighter.
Well, I just cited the acid rain example.
Exactly. Now, from your point of view, are you going to want to revisit this bill and start tightening up faster for environmental purposes? Let's say we get more reports coming out of scientists saying we've reached a tipping point. This thing is moving much more rapidly on global warming. We've got the world's not doing enough.
Well, first of all, I think one thing I should say is that I appreciate Tom's agreement on the long-term goals, 80% reduction by 2050. I think that's very important. The second thing is I'm here to try to bolster his confidence on what's doable in the short term. And I think first the question is, for this bill, getting it through Congress, I understand Tom's argument that it's hard to deploy a lot of these technologies in a hurry, but the bill, with its tremendous flexibility using emissions trading, allowing offsets to be purchased from Brazil and tropical rainforests, really opens up an abundance of both on-system, on the electric grid options, and off-system options. So I think the near-term targets in Waxman-Markey are very achievable. But you're correct, David, that if it turns out, like acid rain, that the cost projections here are higher than reality, and in 2015 or 2017 it turns out that we're able to get reductions both in the electricity system and through offsets at a much cheaper rate than is now expected, and if the scientists are telling us there's still huge urgency, absolutely, we will then, and Tom knows this, we'll then be back in Congress, hopefully together again, but if not, we will be arguing that Congress then should ratchet down. But that will be dependent on the architecture here producing the low-cost reductions that we got in acid rain.